So today on Online for Authors, I'm chatting with D Werkmeister, author of Volk. Welcome, Darin.
Thank you, Terry. It's great to be here.
It is wonderful to have you here. I am surprised, frankly, that I liked your book because it is well outside my normal reading genre. But before we really get into that, why don't you give folks just a really quick idea of what are they going to find when they open up that book?
It's funny that you mentioned that because a lot of people have said, I don't normally read this kind of thing, but I
Yes.
really liked it.
Yeah.
It's listed as a supernatural thriller. I believe the Kirkus review said it is a tight crime thriller with a splattering of werewolves. Who could ask for anything more?
Right.
So that is I very succinctly put what is in
what is going to be in that book. Right?
Yeah, the quick pitch that I tell people is it is like the X-Files meets the Bourne Identity.
Yeah. So I want to know what possessed you to pair up FBI with Shapeshifter, right? Because in my world, FBI is like facts, no nonsense, get the bad guy, like very, very reality based, just, and werewolves are none of those things. So what possessed you to put those two together?
It's a funny story where the kernel of this book came from. I'm a retired FBI agent. I worked organized crime for a number of years, and our squad was out conducting a late night surveillance in South Philadelphia on a mob hangout. And we had to surveil the area overnight. Because there was going to be some activity that was going to be court-ordered activity. There was going to be some listening devices placed. So we need to get a survey of the neighborhood. Who's coming and going at 2 a.m,
right.
Who's getting off work late, all of those things. So we have cars scattered all over. And my partner got out of his car, and I could see it down the street. And he's a tall man. He was about 6'4", and the street light hit him in such a way that as he got out of the car and crossed the street, he cast a shadow. And the shadow was remarkably similar to a Sasquatch shadow,
Right.
to the point that one of the other people on the surveillance, a state trooper that we worked with, got on the radio car to car and made a Yeti sound, made the Sasquatch call. My friend couldn't see it, but we could all hear it and knew exactly what he was doing. I split my gut laughing in the car.
Right.
And it was that moment that it just occurred to me. I was like, we do a lot of late night surveillances. What would happen if FBI agents actually saw something that they couldn't explain? And that was the kernel that started this story. Years later, that was still ruminating in my head. And that was how this whole thing kind of came to be.
I think it's really interesting how stories come to be and how it can be. Often it's a little kernel of truth, or it's just a little side nothing. Because really, when you think about it, in your whole day there and your night doing what you were doing, the fact that your partner got out of a car and cast a shadow is really nothing.
Correct.
Right? I mean, it made no reports. It wasn't anything that anyone had to know about. It was truly a little nothing. And yet it sparked an imaginative place that was like, ooh, I wonder what if. And my books often start with, I wonder what would happen if.
Right? Yeah. It's funny how that works.
What would it be like if?
Yeah. It's funny. And it just, that little seed can all of a sudden just germinate and take root and start to grow, and it expands from there. But it starts with just the slightest little thing that can spark that creative idea.
Yeah, I agree. So I want to know, because often when I'm watching FBI shows on television, it's one of my husband's favorites, or reading FBI books. Now, when we're watching shows, especially if they're CIA shows, my husband did, after he got out of the military, he worked with the CIA. And so he'll see the building and he'll say, yeah, that's not real. That couldn't have happened. He did the maintenance and the grounds and the things. He was an engineer, and he just said, that doesn't exist. That was never there. And the other thing that he can do is tell you what year the outside was taken, because he knows when the water tower was painted and those kinds of things, right?
When certain modifications happen.
Right. So I want to know, how real to life are your FBI scenes? Like when I'm reading them, other than the werewolf, taking that out of it, how real to life are those scenes?
Very.
Okay.
Very real. They are an accurate portrayal of the squad activity.
Okay.
Your interactions with your squad mates, with your supervisors, your investigative steps, things like that. It is the non-werewolf portion of the book.
Right.
The crime part of it is based on some real casework that I did.
Okay.
My partner, the large man who
Sasquatch.
cast a shadow, says, yes, Jim. He and I had a number of high-profile investigations and cases involving money laundering, Russian organized crime, things like that. So those pieces of it are accurate. And it's funny you mentioned that, because as an FBI agent, I had to get approval from FBI headquarters.
Yeah.
So I had to send the book down to them, and they took several months to review it, and then they finally got around to it, and they sent me a note, and they said, okay, we need to know what casework you drew from for this book, so that we can review those case files, make sure that you're not divulging anything in there. And they said, other than the werewolf. So,
because if that was there, we don't want to know about it, right?
So I sent the note back, and I said, absolutely, I can confirm I did not work with a werewolf, nor did I experience an encounter with one. Here are the cases that I did work. And they finally approved it, and they came back and said, okay, if you continue writing in this genre, we don't have to approve any more of your books. But,
Right. And so, and I've talked with authors who were in the military and have written military-esque books who've had to do the same thing.
Yes.
Where you have to go through, and you're just making sure that you didn't inadvertently tell something that is still like an ongoing investigation, or that you described a technique that isn't out there in the world yet, or that you divulged that you knew about where someone was before you were supposed to know where someone, that kind of thing. So that's interesting. I had not considered that you would have to do that.
Yes. And they took a look at the case files that I listed and made sure that I said, look, I fictionalized everyone's name, I fictionalize events, but I draw on experience of these cases. So
I'm curious. Obviously, you had years of experience to draw on. With that, did you have to do any research, or did you really feel like you had, just from your experience, you knew what you needed to put in there?
Oh, just from experience. This was literally from my recollection. I threw there's a lot of details at the office. A lot of my former coworkers read it, and I've heard back from them, and they're like, oh, I love it so much that you mentioned XYZ, and you talk about pretzel day, and those things.
Right. Those things that actually were happening in your world. I think that's great. So then my next question is that your main character is a female FBI agent.
Yes.
Carrie Watson. And I'm curious why a male former FBI agent would choose to write about a female FBI agent versus
a male agent or something, right? That would be more personal in my experience.
Yeah. So what prompted that?
That is a father of two daughters coming through.
Okay.
I have two daughters, and I distinctly remember sitting and watching a number of animated movies when they were young, and looking at them and saying, the princess doesn't have to be rescued, right? She can do this herself.
Right.
And all of those things. So I wanted a book that had very strong female characters running through it. I wanted to provide that for them, and I wanted to provide that for any other girls that are reading this. I knew a number of female FBI agents that were tough as nails.
Right.
So, and I don't think they get enough credit.
They usually show FBI police type female agents dressed in very tight clothes and wearing high heel shoes. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
You know, and it's
they
like,
glam them up. Yes.
Yes. And so like, even so, this will sound crazy, but like, I'll go on to Canva after all this is done, and I'm going to like try to come up with a little conglomerate of things to represent your book. And when I put in female and then like police or something like that, all of the women that come up have high heels on.
Yes. It is. I did a little dabbling with trying to come up with some cover work as well. And I was using image, and I was like, I had the same experience, and my reaction was probably very similar. Like, you've got to be kidding me.
Like, there's no way she's out there running around
No.
doing real FBI work, wearing a shirt that doesn't cover up everything up top, and pants that are so tight she can't bend over in, and high heels.
Correct.
Like, she's not dropping down into a stance and shooting someone in those heels. I know that. I wear heels. This doesn't.
You cannot move quickly in those. And God bless women who wear those, because I have no idea how you people do that.
Right. But you know, and it's not that there's anything wrong with dressing that. I don't mean that. I'm just saying that it's not very accurate.
It is
in
not
terms
an accurate
of what
portrayal.
you expect from an actual working FBI agent who is a woman.
Correct.
So yeah. So I like that you were trying to show a female perspective. Was that difficult to do?
Not as hard as I thought it might be at the beginning. Really, what I did was I wrote the character as if it was as it was a man.
Yeah. And
just made the character a female, because honestly, the work that we do, it's the same between men and women. There is no distinction of like, oh, well, this is a case for a female agent.
This is a female case, right?
Yeah, right. Or this is a case. No, cases come down. You get a case. You work the case. It doesn't matter who, what gender you are, or anything like that. So in this book, Terry is written as just a straight FBI agent, doing her job, going about her business, chasing bad guys and trying to make cases, and all of the ups and downs and trials and tribulations that go with that. And there is that is the case. Rarely does anything start at point A and go directly to B. No, there are a number of deviations through there that you have to navigate.
Right. I loved that. I particularly liked the point where they realize they've seen something. They're not even really sure what that is, but it's something, and they know that their explanation of it makes zero sense.
Yes.
Right. And so they're talking between themselves like, you saw it, I saw it, you saw it, you shot it, right? And it didn't like react, right? And I saw it, you saw it, you like jumped that fence, right? And took the person, right? And like, we see, right? And then they try to explain this up the line, and they're pretty much told, like, you need to change your story.
Right. Like, I don't know what you saw, but this isn't going to fly.
This you can't write this in.
That was one of my favorite scenes to write. Was the interaction between Terry, her partner Mark, and the supervisor.
Yes.
I distinctly remember writing that and laughing and saying, putting myself in that position, and that is exactly how it would have gone.
Right. Like I think you need to reevaluate. Like, okay, so you saw something. We can say that, and there was another person there, and they did make off with, and you shot toward them.
Right, exactly. So we're going to get all of the facts in there, but we're going to leave out some of the details on this and leave it as
we're not saying the werewolf word.
Yes,
and
we're going to leave it as an unsub.
Supernatural, and we're not going to say that this thing was 8 feet tall. We're just not. We're just not. You know?
Yeah. So the term we use is unsub, unknown subject. So it's going to be an unsub. We don't know who this was, so just leave it at that.
Just leave it as unsub, say nothing more, because you know. And so then from that point on, now they're kind of like working the case without anyone really being aware, because they're trying to figure out, okay, we know what we saw, but we don't know what we saw.
Correct.
Let's see
Right.
if we can figure out what we saw.
Right,
Right.
right. And they're kind of limited then in what they can
Right.
do because it's not an open sanctioned case. They're
Right.
kind of working it off book a little bit here, trying to, because they know they can't tell anyone.
Yeah, because you're going to ruin your career. I want you to imagine yourself, right? You know, you're 15, 20 years into your career and you walk in and say, by the way, I shot a werewolf.
Right. Yeah. You know, that incident. Yeah. I shot him a couple of times and I don't
Yeah.
know what happened, but yeah. Oh, and by the way, yeah, it had teeth and claws.
Teeth and claws, and was 8 feet tall. And, you know, really, and they're like, okay, so where's, you know, psych, you know, get
They're
psych
going to say,
out.
you know what? Why don't you give me your gun now? I'll
Yeah.
put it in the safe for safekeeping, and you go see the nurse,
Yeah.
and you maybe get a few days off. So yeah, that's not going to fly well.
Yeah, yeah. So with things like unsanctioned cases, that's, you know, often when you're watching movies, that's where it focuses on, right?
Mhm.
Like it's things that they're doing off the books and they're sneaking around and no one knows. How often does that actually happen?
No, it does not. I had
Okay.
to for creative purposes, I had
Right.
to embellish that. But yeah,
Right.
we're FBI agents are rule followers. You
Yeah.
know, we may get angry, we may get frustrated with that, but we're not going to
You're not
run an
going to
off.
go and run a whole investigation
No,
on
we're
your
not going to
own
run an
with,
off book.
okay.
We may get creative in a way of opening a case
Okay.
to say, okay, we're going to explore this, and we're going to try and figure it out, and you know, do a case opening document like that. But yeah, we have to have some kind of sanction
Yeah.
and backup.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's what I figured, because the off book, I mean, like I said, it makes for good movies. It
mhm.
makes for good books.
People going a
the
little rogue. Yeah.
yeah, but the reality is that, you know, if you watch television, you assume all FBI agents are rogue, and at any moment they're going off
Right.
book,
They could
and
go
that,
off any moment.
yeah, and
Yes.
that you got to be careful, because they could just all of a sudden, they're little vigilantes off on their own doing their own little thing, and that's, you know, not really the way it works, which is why in the beginning I said, you know, here we've got the rule following FBI folks and you paired it with a werewolf. It's like, whoa, what a
Right. And I
what a
yeah,
concept.
and that was it was a lot of fun to kind of explore that, where if you take somebody who is in a system, and it is a very well defined system of how they are supposed to operate, and then something extraordinary is introduced, and
And how do they respond?
how do they respond? How do
Yeah,
the characters respond? What do they do? How do they go about their business, you know, from
right.
there? And that was a lot of fun to explore.
Yeah, that, I think that's the part about writing that is really exciting is, you know, there's reality, and you know, even as fiction novelists, there's still reality in our book,
Sure.
right? But
Absolutely.
the fun part of the writing is when you've deviated off that path a little bit, you
Yeah,
know.
and letting it kind of play itself out. Let
Yes.
that string play out and see, well, where does it go? What
Where does it,
happens?
what's this going to go? So speaking of that, did you have a start to finish? Did you know where you were going, or did you just start writing and see where it went?
I did the latter. I just
Okay.
started writing, and wanted to see where it went. And the this isn't the typical grief book, but my father had passed away in 2021, and I had spent a lot of time, you know, either with him, helping him
Right.
with things, or talking to him on the phone. He was back in Nebraska, so I devoted a couple of hours every day after I retired to help him and work with him and spend time with him. And then when he died, I had this void.
Yeah.
I had all of this time, and I said, "What am I going to do with this?" So I just literally sat down and said, well, I'm just going to do some creative writing. I'm just going to see what happens. And it was going to be just for me, maybe share it with my family. And as I started to write, um, certain elements of grief come through.
Right.
It's that's just normal. But this story just started. I said earlier about the little germ of a seed that started this, that kind of kicked around. And I was like, well, I'm just going to explore this. and start writing, and it just went through.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure where it was going to go and how it was going to go. I was talking with my daughter, bouncing ideas off of her and things. And when it kind of started to mesh a little bit, I let them read it, and they were like, this kind of sounds like a book. And I never intended to write a book.
Yeah, like that wasn't my intention, but
That wasn't my intention. They're like,
Yeah.
this is starting to sound like a book. I was like, huh, well, maybe it is. And then I started to think about it in those terms and started tightening things and
Right.
trying to pull things together.
So then there's so Darin, the accidental author, is
that would be a very accurate description. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So you didn't have ideas in your head from years and years ago that you were going to retire and become an author?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, I stumbled into this, and you can probably understand this as well, but there is such joy
There is
in working on this, and the characters become real, and you start to feel everything kind of come together. There's a real joy and satisfaction in that, and I've have to admit I've become addicted to that. I really enjoy the process and the working on the characters and fleshing it out and starting to understand more about story and how this comes together and working on dialogue. It's a wonderful craft.
It is, and I love it when you get to a point and you're starting to wonder, like, how are we going to wrap this up, or where is this? And all of a sudden, you get that idea, and it's like, and the whole book just kind of like, and you see where it's going, and that moment,
yes, the aha moment,
like, oh my gosh, and it's like now all this work that I've done up to this point, and so you, like me, are a pantser.
Yeah, so absolutely,
right by the seat of your pants, right?
I'm
you
a
don't
pantser.
Have this beautiful outline out there, and for me, as a pantser, that is like the moment.
Yes.
I've done
it's
all
raw.
of this work, and there's part of you that has a fear that you're never going to find the end. Like,
yes.
Like, what if it doesn't ever come together? What if this just is a bunch of words I've written that get put in the bottom of a drawer, right?
Yes. That is absolutely true. It's a little bit of a high wire act.
Yeah, it is.
And there's a little bit of fear as it's going, like, where are we going with this? What's going to happen? And how is this all going to come together? But when you have that moment, that aha moment, and you see it and everything clicks, all of a sudden you're like, oh, that is so wonderful.
That is so wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. So what is your editing process like? Let's talk about your writing and your editing. Do you like write a chapter, rewrite a chapter, rewrite a chapter? Do you write the whole thing and then go back? Like, what is your process?
Yeah, I'm still honing my process. I have the second book done and the third one I'm working on now in the series. So what I typically do is I will get a first draft of a chapter down. I may even start writing into the next one, but in my mind, the first one is still playing,
right?
And I'm seeing things, and I'm hearing dialogue. It's weird to say that, but you
I
do.
know, but I tell people all the time, I hear voices and no, I don't need to be medicated. So
yes. The voices are real, and you do start to understand the characters. They talk to you, they talk amongst themselves, and you start to. So I will then go back to the previous work and spend a day going through that, embellishing. I equate it to like baking a cake. I will mix the batter, I will bake the cake and set it, and then I'll move on to another one. Then I will come back and I'll add icing, and then I'll go work on this, and then I'll come back and I'll do some more decoration on the icing, and then so it's a multi-step process of going back and forth and getting it to where I want it.
I tend to do more of what I call word vomit, where I just I have the story, like it's coming out and I'm writing, and I just keep writing. I try not to go back. I just keep writing until I've found my conclusion, and then I just let it sit for a while. I say that's when it's perking, and then I bring it back and I read it over and I take really good notes about things that are going to happen before chapter 17 for chapter 17.
Right.
Like I added this fact in, but really I need to allude to it before here.
Right.
And so
Where
I'll
am I
write
going to
it.
foreshadow that?
Yes.
Yes.
So I'll
Yes.
write a little note. Needs to know that there's Italian heritage involved prior to chapter 17. And then, and I go through and do that. And then I take those notes and I put all that into it. And then I let it sit again. And then I read it. And then that's when I start doing the really detailed, like that dialogue is too stilted, or I have yet to really describe the area and I need to, and this would be a good spot for that. And, I've got them taking a walk. This would be a good place to, that kind of thing.
Right.
So,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. I will in my mind picture the scene, and then I start to say, okay, well, what do they hear? What do they smell?
Yeah.
Particularly when you have a werewolf as a character, the sense of smell
was very important.
very important. So what smells would they pick up, and start to embellish and lay those in? And I will go for a walk, and it's all rolling around in my head, and I'll come home and immediately sit down, and I have a piece of
right.
Yes, and sometimes I have a piece of paper and I just start writing. I'm like, okay, I need this, and like you said, it's like, okay, chapter 17 has this, right? This has to go before that.
It has to go before it. I need to foreshadow this. We need something that explains why this matters to her here.
Right? Why is this important? And yes, and then I'll take a look at those notes. Then I'll go in and start laying that in. But yeah, it will just come as a rush, and all of a sudden, I have 5 things that I've been thinking about for the last 2 hours while I'm walking, and I get back and I need to get them down now, and start working on that.
Right. I live near the beach, and I like walking on the beach, and that's where I get a lot of my ideas. And my first half of the walk, I'm usually walking, and my mind is just racing with just life, right? All the things that are going on. And then the last half of my walk is wherever I turn around and start back, I've noticed that I'm much more still and calm. And I tell people I feel like I walk with the waves. Like I almost have the rhythm of whatever's going on around me. And that's when these ideas just start, like,
your mind is
pow,
free.
pow, pow.
Yes, your mind is free. You're relaxed, and the ideas can just flow. Yeah. It's oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, some people do it like through like meditation. I'm not a good still person. I don't do still. Yeah. It's like you make me still, and now my mind is really too active. It's like, and so if I get out and walk, it does allow, it's like that action. Then my mind says, okay, we're busy. We don't have to be.
Correct. I'm the same way. I'm a fidgeter. So meditation is not where I'm going to draw my ideas. But yes, I the area I'm in and outside of Philadelphia, there's some nice wooded trails, things like that. I like to get into the forest, into nature, and take a walk and listen to the birds, listen to the wind through the leaves. And you're exactly right. It takes a little bit of time to settle into the rhythm.
Like for your mind to, I really do. It's almost like my mind says, okay, she is actually busy and active and doing something. We don't need to be involved at the moment.
Right.
And then it allows that creative part to say, oh, good, we have space now.
Yes, right. It's like, oh, okay, now the door's open. We can come in, right? Yeah.
Right.
So it is funny how that works. But yeah, I'm very much a nature person, and I want to get out, and that's where I start my mind freeze, and I can let things go. And then, like I said, 2 hours of that, I'm come in and I'm like immediately run to the table and sit down.
I've got things. Yeah, I know.
There are things that need to be recorded.
Absolutely. So you have book 2 coming out.
Yes.
Give readers just a quick idea. Is it same characters? Are we going to see this? Okay.
Yep. It's a sequel. It's set and book 1 is set predominantly in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is practically a character in the book, the city. So it's set in Philadelphia, and there is a killer stalking the Phoenix area. The book is called Skinwalkers, after the Navajo legend of the skinwalkers. So the Southwest U.S. there's a killer afoot. Terry and her compatriots firmly believe that it is a shapeshifter. So they finagle away to get out there and work with the Phoenix State Police to try and identify, find, and stop this killer out there. So it's the same characters, and they are now working another shapeshifter type
shapeshifter case. Fantastic. And then you alluded to even a third book.
Yes, that one.
Do you want to tell us much about that one? Do you know where it's going?
I'm a pantser. I don't know where it's going.
That's what I was going to say. I'm not sure how far along you are in the process. So
I have a general idea of what I want to happen in that, and I actually took the time to write kind of an outline of which I, after getting into now 50 pages of it, I'm already, the outline is out the window and it's moving in its own direction.
I know. So, I tried the same thing because I felt like I really should outline. Like everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people. Yeah, you do. Like I'm not really an author because I don't do this stuff, right?
I don't have 200 white index cards stuck to the wall, moving around.
And for me, it's like I wrote up this outline and my characters laughed at me.
Yeah.
Like I feel like they were sitting there going, look at her. She thinks she's in charge.
Isn't that cute?
And she's sweet. Bless her heart. And I sometimes feel like my characters stand along the wall with their arms crossed and say, well, you let us know when you're ready to really do this. And then we'll give you our ideas. And as long as you have that outline out, that's not going to happen. So,
I look at it as a starting point. It's where I started, and there's an expression it's a common military expression: no plan survives first contact.
First contact with the enemy. Yep.
Yes, and writing, my style of writing is exactly that. No outline survives a first draft.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Oh, I love that. I love how you put those two together. The number of times my husband has said that, no plan survives. And he's always been really good at having not a second plan, but like a second way of achieving the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so it's always fun for me to watch him say, no, we're on the same plan. We just have a different way of, it's the same thing. We're still going here.
Right.
We're just doing it differently. The
objective has not changed. Yes. The objective is still here. We're going to reach that. We're just going to do it in a slightly different manner. We're just doing it a slightly
different way. And I tell everyone that he always has 5 different ways in his pocket. Always. Mm-hmm. And I'm not that way. I'm the one that it's like, oh my gosh, the plan is blown, and I'm just, falling apart. And he's like, no, it's not. We're still headed to wherever we're going.
It's funny we talk about this because literally in the second book, Skinwalkers, there's a point in there where Terry is talking about her partner Mark, who is off setting something up, and the person she's with says, should we call Mark and tell him what's going on and give him a heads up? And Terry says something to the effect of, oh, we can, but if I know Mark, he has plan A already done. He's working on plan B, plan C and D are already in his mind.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
He is.
So that's very much who my husband is. And I think what's interesting for me is that in my personal life, like how I go about living my day, I have lists. I love crossing things off. I like things to go as planned. I get very irate when things don't go as I had them planned, right? I'm very this is how my day is going to go. I know what I'm doing at 8. I know what I'm doing at 9. Like I'm very like that. When it comes to me as an author and writing, I am not that.
All of that goes out the window.
It does. And it's like, oh my gosh, I think I have a dual personality. I don't know where this came from, but yeah.
The creative muse takes over, and
and it's just like plans out the window.
Yep, I completely relate to that. I'm the same way. I have a list every day. I need to do this. I need to do my bills. I need to check on that.
Yes,
and there's a satisfaction with putting an X and checking it off. And
I don't even just check it. I scribble it. There is something I love it. I've been known to add things to my list
just to cross them off.
Cross it out.
Yes.
Right? It's like, oh look, I did this extra thing. I better write it down.
You know what? I did something wasn't on the list. I'm going to put it on the list and immediately cross it off.
Cross it out.
Because there's a satisfaction.
There's something very satisfying. But in my writing life,
completely
I'm
different.
Not that at all.
No, I don't set word goals or anything like that. I see people like, oh, I'm going to write 500 words a day for a month. And I'm like, that's not the way I operate.
No. And I might not write anything for several days because it's perking in my mind. And then I'll sit down and write for 10 hours and not get up from my chair. And when I do get up, I think, oh my gosh, what's happened to the house? Because I've been in here, so I don't know. That's just my style.
That sounds very familiar because I operate the same way. I don't set word goals. I don't set chapter goals. I will sit and I will write. And when it isn't there, I think. And it will percolate. It will steep a little bit, and then all of a sudden it will click, and there it goes.
I'm trying out ideas in my mind,
and
it's like, and I'll be thinking it through, and it's like, it's not really going anywhere great, is it? And then I'll think, well, what would happen if, and I try this little scenario, and then something, and it'll be like, ooh,
yeah,
that could work.
That could work. Yes.
And I don't want to sit down and write up those other ones and then throw it away.
Right. And I follow the approach that if I never throw anything out, I will cut it and put it into a document that is just called book ideas.
Yeah.
And once in a while I'll go through and I'll look at those and say, yeah, that would work. I have multiple, plot threads that just
that just come up out of nowhere. I have to write them down. And then I tell my brain, okay, it's written down. Now, hush, I'm trying to finish this book. Like, I don't have time for this next one yet. I'm still on this one, so stop.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Let's stay on task here. Let's focus a little bit. But it is multiple things popping at one time, and getting it all down. And even with these books, I have multiple plot threads that I started, and I thought, no, that'll be something later, and just cut it and put it in a document. I'm not going to delete it completely because I may want it. It may
come up somewhere else. It may turn into something. Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. It's a process. If what I do can be described as a process, I'll take that.
Well, yeah. So I mean, it is it's our very own process, right?
It's my own. Yes.
Right. So hey guys, if you want to keep this book conversation going, head on over to Novels and Latte Book Club on Facebook. There you're going to find. I'm going to have a little something about this particular podcast that I've just done. And Darin has offered an audiobook copy of Volk, which you will definitely want. So head on over there today and let us know what you thought of this podcast. So Darin, if someone wanted to get up with you, talk with you more about what you're doing, about your ideas, about your processes, how do they get up with you?
That's a really good question. I have an author email, D Werkmeister author at gmail.com. People can drop me a note if they've read the book and they enjoyed it, or they have questions or anything like that. They can certainly drop me a note. I'm also have an author Facebook page. D Werkmeister author on Facebook. You can look me up there, and I'd be happy to have anybody interact with me on Facebook that is not a bot or
trying to sell you some marketing thing, right?
Yes,
I know.
Oh, I post things, and as soon as I hit submit, I think to myself, why did I do this? Because immediately I'm inundated with those requests.
I know, it's crazy.
So please, real people,
reach out to Darin. I'll have all of those links in the show notes, so that you'll be able to reach out to Darin and chat with him about his book. Definitely run right out and read Volk. like I said, it is not normally my genre. I would have said at the very beginning when I found out that there was a werewolf in it, I immediately thought, probably not something that I'm going to enjoy. And I was really amazed, quite frankly, at how much I enjoyed the book. So I couldn't wait to have you on so that I could tell other people, hey, even if you're not into shapeshifter stuff, you're going to like this book. It is really very enjoyable. So thank you.
Thank you so much for those. And it's funny, in the shapeshifter genre, there's so much shapeshifter romance.
Yes.
And this is not a shapeshifter romance in there. So
it was, I just found it to be, I think there was enough reality. It was grounded enough in reality that my brain could go with that. And the werewolf portion wasn't so overpowering.
It's just a dash of werewolves.
It was good. To me, it was exactly right. I was very amazed and thrilled. So there you have it.
Thank you so much for that, Terry. That means a lot. Thank you.
Well, and thank you for being on my show today, Darin.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
I agree it was.
One pantser to another.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.